living in poverty without getting blamed for it. But see, when all the propaganda started, all the propaganda, that these people in these communities, they're lazy, they don't want to work, and the other people in the communities that were still lucky enough to be in work, they really started to believe that they were out working to keep the unemployed. And then the propaganda started about single parents, and they were just having ways to get disease and blah, blah, blah. And that's very, very hurtful, because all the propaganda really became internalised with people in the communities. And then people started to talk about, the global market economy as being free, but in reality, the people in my community were all being enslaved and entrapped in the poverty trap. And so I realised that what was going on was a war without bullets, a war that was being fought with briefcases instead of guns, and a war that was trying to really safely dispose of all the people in communities like mine who'd all become surplus to market requirements. And so that's when the real struggle started, because obviously you all know in the media people are absolutely dominated by the elite values and principles. And yet what I saw happening in our communities was that people were actually internalising their values and principles. And so that's when the real war began. And so, but how can you fight against this war, the war without bullets, when people do not believe that it's actually happening? How do you fight against that? What's very, very hard. But obviously, I have been very fortunate, and my community was very active, and we started to make all the connections and make all the links. But in I had really became very, very interested in popular education. And I'm quite sure you're all quite familiar with that. Basically, in the communities like ours, we were all sort of divided, we were fighting against each other, divide and rule, blah, blah, blah. How on earth do you create a community and society that's not only got a common vision, but a common struggle? And for those of you who don't know, I'm not familiar with Harold Ferry, the Brazilian educator who is regarded as a world leader in the liberation of poor communities. And he coined the phrase, cultures of silence. And basically what Paolo was talking about, when you're into the poor communities, there was lots and lots of issues going on, but people had got to the stage that they felt it didn't make any difference. There wasn't any point in trying to raise your voices because nobody would listen to you. And so we created techniques and tools to really start up dialogue in the communities. Things like a quote, or a picture, so that people could get an opportunity to come together and actually analyse what was exactly going on in this community. Social and economic analysation. And so that they could also come up with a solution. And so in 1992, I went to Nicaragua, not to see how I could help the poor people, but to see how the poor people could help us. Because obviously they're experts on the liberation struggle, and they had been using popular education for years in liberation theology. So I wanted to see it in actual action. But when I was in Nicaragua, I was visiting a community who were eking their life off a rubbish tip. And I was fascinated by all the wee yellow butterflies. And I said to Alfonso, I'm fascinated with these wee butterflies. And Alfonso says, well, Cathy, people in Nicaragua believe that only when there's a plague of wee yellow butterflies will peace come. And I started to think about us as being like, either we can flutter in each other's lives and we can pollinate it and enrich it, or else we can be like the mosquito and we can drain the lifeblood out of people. And so I started to do research into the analogy of the wee yellow butterfly. And that's why I've called my book The Wee Yellow Butterfly. And it's been a long time in the making, because when I come back from Nicaragua, people kept saying to me, Cathy, you've got to write a book. Because I couldn't believe the connections that I was making. The most important thing that they taught me, the woman in Nicaragua taught me, that if people don't understand their past, they don't understand their present reality, then they can never, ever, ever be free to participate in the future. And that's why I think popular education is so, so important in our society, more now, because people have been told so many lies, and there's been so much spin, that some people don't even know what the truth is anymore, or what the reality is. And I feel as if that's how people are more interested in reality TV. And so I'm absolutely delighted that after all these years, that my publisher felt that my story was one that was worth telling. And the thing I love about the story is I have used myself to try to tell a big story, a wider story, in the struggle that people and communities are facing around the world. But the thing that really shocked me when I was in Nicaragua, I had realised that we were forced to live on a gyro. That there was something more happening. It was the people in Nicaragua that told me that basically what had happened, because it's that they were regarded as the model for development in healthcare in Latin America. And what basically happened was IMF and the World Bank put conditions on loans that people got in the developing world. And their loans were conditional on everything being privatised. And so the healthcare system that they set up was completely privatised by the time I got there. It was absolutely horrendous. And so then I started to make the links with what was happening here in Britain, the high unemployment, blah, blah, blah. And so I see the book as a real social history of the struggle of the working class people in particular in Britain, and how people have all become engaged in a process of the war without bullets. And when I started it in 1982, I never ever thought in my wildest dreams ever that this time would come. When I'm talking about the war without bullets, it's social, it's economic, and it's psychological. And this war has wiped out a whole generation, an absolute whole generation. And most of you will probably be really familiar with the Welfare Reform Bill. And for me, that is absolute total evidence of the world war against the poor. That is the worst inhumane attack on the most defenceless, sickest people in our society. And the indications are that it's going to reintroduce slavery back into your country. Because women who are fleeing domestic violence, who go into a refuge, will only get 3 months to get their feet together and be forced to work. Who is going to look after their children? And they're going to be forced to work for $1.73 an hour. And as Oliver James says, the only people who are going to benefit out of this is places like Tesco's. And so I just feel, the book is an opportunity as well to try and make the connections, because it frustrates me so much that people in this country have been made so aware of the dangers of passive smoking, but totally oblivious to the dangers of passive poverty. And yet the capitalist whole system, global market economy, is not only created and killing more people than tanks or bombs, it's also destroying the lungs of the earth in the process and right under our very noses. And for me, that is why popular education is so, so important, and why my book's so important. Not to punt my book as in Cathy McCormack, but to try and give people a grassroots analysis of what's going on, in particular over the past 10 years. And I'm also delighted that Barbara's here as well, because I realised a long time ago, in Easterhouse, for example, which is a post-war housing scheme, the people there fought for 20 years to get a shopping centre, and it was called the township. And that's exactly what is going on in Glasgow. We get 4 big townships. But people, obviously, the poor get the blame for everything. But I'm sick to death of people talk about poverty. Because what we're experiencing is not poverty, but social and economic oppression. And people don't want to hear that. They don't want, they're so afraid. Afraid that they've become part of a society and a democratic system that is enslaving people and creating so much human suffering and hardship. And so Barbara and I met in 1990 here at Culture. And our community wanted to capitalise on the European City of Culture, and we created a place called Damp Listers, which was our culture. They lived in damp places. And we took part in one of the biggest independent studies ever carried out in Britain to show the relationship between damp housing and our sick children. Because our sick children, I couldn't believe that babies were on steroids, and children were on inhalers, and they regarded it as if it was normal. But we had to come up with the evidence to show that this is not right. And so what we discovered, the 2 most important moles in our district called aspergillus and penicillin. And I breastfed my children, and the health minister couldn't understand how they kept taking thrush. And I didn't understand either until we identified the thrush, the mould in the house that was causing the yeast mould, right? And so when we were washing off the dampness, we were releasing all these spores. And we were actually breathing them in, right? And they were falling because there were colonies inside your lungs, mucous membranes. It was absolutely so shocking. Anyhow, it's been a long, long journey. So Barbara and I, Barbara's an independent documentary maker. And Barbara, would you like to introduce the film? How it came about. The most important thing about it is we wanted people to see the links between the similarities between the racial apartheid in South Africa and the social and economic apartheid that was happening here and the working class communities in Britain. And so, I'm so delighted that we're showing it tonight again, because that film was shown in every country in the world except for Britain. And although it was made to be 10 years ago, 1999, I just feel as if it's more relevant now. And we started showing it in the regional film theatres in Scotland. And for the first time, people actually got it. People were made to feel so bad about living in poverty that they denied it. But they took ownership of the fact that they were being oppressed. And that was an absolute major breakthrough.